When an Egyptian god starts killing the other gods and trying to take over the world, a god must team up with a mortal to try and stop him. Welcome back to Recap Spot. Today we'll be recapping the 2016 action-adventure film, Gods of Egypt. In ancient Egypt, gods lived alongside humans in a paradise that they created. The land was split in half and given to two brothers. Osiris was given the bountiful land by the Nile River, and his brother Set was given the deserts, making him bitter and jealous of his brother. Eventually, the time came for Osiris to pass down his crown, and he named his son Horus as his successor. We then cut to Egypt and see a mortal named Bek, talking with the love of his life Zaya as she prepares a dress for Horus's coronation. Bek doesn't like the gods and criticizes how much Zaya loves and trusts Horus.
It was quicker than waiting for the gods to answer my prayers.
We then see Horus admiring his armor in the mirror on the day of his coronation, as his lover Hathor makes fun of him for not being prepared. At the coronation ceremony, everyone brings gifts for Horus and Osiris tells the worshippers that he loves them all equally, regardless of their gift's value. He also promises everyone that they shall have a spot in the afterlife.
Welcome to the afterlife.
Osiris prepares to crown Horus as Egypt's new king, but is interrupted when his brother Set appears from the crowd. Set challenges Osiris to a fight for the crown, and ends up killing him in front of everybody. Set declares himself the new king, and tells everyone that he wants to change the rules about the afterlife, so that now you have to offer up a significant treasure in order to gain entry to a good afterlife.
Shall be your one true king.
Osiris dies in his son's arms, and Horus takes up a weapon and begins to fight Set. Set easily beats Horus, enraging Horus and prompting him to turn into his true form. The two battle again, but Set once again wins, and this time he pins Horus down and rips out his eyes. Set gets ready to stab and kill Horus, but Hathor steps in and promises herself to him in exchange for Horus's life.
Forgive me, Father.
With Set now in charge, the mortals are enslaved, and the gods that don't approve of him are killed off one by one. We see Bek in slavery, but he manages to escape and goes to visit Zaya, who's enslaved by Urshu, Set's head architect. Bek surprises her and tells her that he wants to steal her away, but Zaya says there's no point, because everyone else would still be suffering. Zaya believes Horus could help free everyone, and she asks Bek to steal the eyes of Horus away from Set. She then shows Bek the plans to Set's pyramid, where he hides the source of his power.
Only a madman would try such a thing.
Zaya warns him that the pyramid is rigged with numerous traps to try and stop thieves. That night, Bek jumps into one of Set's treasure wagons and is dumped into a secret tunnel alongside the rest of the treasure. He then locates one of the eyes of Horus and has to evade several traps in order to grab it. He then rushes back to Zaya. However, he discovers that Urshu has found out about their plan. Urshu has Bek and Zaya surrounded by guards, but Bek is able to use Horus's eye to blind everyone and give them an opportunity to escape. They hop into a chariot and begin to drive off. However, as they leave, Zaya gets shot in the heart with an arrow and dies. With no other options, Bek goes to Horus's temple and begs the god for help.
I have something Set took from you.
Horus senses that Bek has his eye and demands it back, but Bek refuses unless Horus can resurrect Zaya. Horus eventually agrees and summons Anubis over Zaya's body, and he watches with Bek as Anubis takes her soul to the afterlife. Bek is furious because that's the opposite of what he wanted, and Horus takes the opportunity to grab his eye back. He gets ready to kill Bek, but stops when he learns that Bek has seen the plans for Set's pyramid. Horus then agrees to bring Zaya back to life if Bek can help him take revenge against Set and become king again.
Try to keep up.
Meanwhile, Set finds out that the eye was stolen and blames Urshu for making bad traps. He then sends out Mnevis, his most trusted servant, to find and deal with the thief. Horus and Bek travel up a mountain, and Horus prays to his grandfather, Ra, to temporarily regain the ability to fly. Horus then transforms and flies with Bek up to a spaceship above the Earth, where Ra resides. The two watch as Ra fights with a demon of chaos known as Apophis in order to protect the Earth from him. Ra tells Horus he knows that he's come to him for help, but he refuses to help his grandson because he still loves his son Set. However, he gives Horus a vial of water that's capable of snuffing out Set's powers from within his pyramid.
The waters are not mine.
The two crash back to the Earth and end up getting ambushed by Set's henchmen. Horus is able to fight them all off, even though he isn't at full power. But Mnevis survives the attack and reports everything back to Set. Mnevis tells Set where Horus and Bek are, as well as the fact that Horus has promised to revive Beck's lover. Set is surprised by this, because it isn't possible to resurrect someone. He then orders his lieutenants to go kill Horus and Beck. Hather, who's been forced into a relationship with Set, secretly watches Horus as he approaches his father's temple, but Set sees this and realizes that Hather isn't loyal. Set prepares to kill her, but Hather removes her bracelet of the 42 stars, a special bracelet given to her by Horus that protects her from the demons that constantly hunt her down.
Do that and I'll hunt you down.
When she removes it, the demons snatch her away from Set, and when she puts it back on, she's spat away from the danger. At Osiris's temple, Beck notices a sandstorm approaching him and Horus from behind, and it turns out to be Set's lieutenants. The two hunters come after them while riding the backs of huge snakes, so Horus and Beck start running for their lives. Horus uses a spear to stab one of the snakes in the mouth. Beck then starts running away from the other snake so he can bait it to chase him. Horus then sneaks up from behind and ties the lieutenant to her snake. He then jumps off the snake right before it falls off a cliff. The temple collapses as Beck and Horus run out, only for them to find Hather outside.
Pretty go!
She goes up to the remaining snake and hypnotizes it to burn and kill itself, killing its master as well. Horus tells Hather about his plan to break into Set's pyramid and quench his power. Hather warns him that Set has the Sphinx guarding the entrance to his pyramid, and if they don't get the Sphinx's riddle right, then they'll die. The group head to Thoth, the god of wisdom, to ask him for help solving the riddle. Thoth refuses, because he says his work writing down all of the wisdom of the world is more important. However, Beck challenges the god's ego to get him to agree.
How vain do you think I am?
The group travel to Set's pyramid and see that the stones are all shifting at the same time. Beck is able to remember the way in from the blueprints and turns a wheel that stops the stones from moving, letting everyone else get in unharmed. The group make it to the Sphinx, and Thoth is able to answer the riddle successfully after a few failed tries. The Sphinx retreats, and Horus gets ready to quench the flames. However, a trap triggers and separates them. Set appears behind Thoth and steals his brain.
I should thank you.
Beck goes to extinguish the flames, but stops when Set tells him that Horus has lied to him about being able to bring Zaya back. Beck hesitates, giving Set the time to steal the water and pour it onto the ground. Set then leaves and causes the temple to start collapsing, but Horus is able to break out of his trap and protect everyone from the debris. Beck is angry at Horus for lying to him, and Hather tries to make it better by giving Beck her bracelet so that Zaya will have a treasure to pass on to the afterlife. Horus tries to stop her, and the two share a final kiss before Hather is dragged off by the demons. As Zaya is about to be judged at the final gates of the afterlife, Beck appears and gives her the bracelet so she can use it as her offering. Meanwhile, Set combines all the powers he stole from other gods into his own body so that he can be stronger than anyone else. Set then visits Ra and tells the man that he wants to become immortal by making Apophis devour and destroy the afterlife.
This is how your test ends, my son.
Ra tries to kill Set to stop him, but is overpowered and blasted by the newly buffed Set. In the afterlife, Beck notices that something is wrong with the gates of the underworld, and Anubis uses his powers to protect his realm. Zaya then tells Beck that he must return to Horus, because he's the only one with power to stop Set. Beck reappears in the mortal world near Horus, and tells him what's happening. The two must confront Set before Apophis destroys everything, and luckily they're given a flying carriage from one of the other gods who is defeated by Set. As the two quickly fly towards their enemy, Set uses the Spear of Ra on Earth to lure Apophis towards him.
Maybe it's time we go fishing.
Horus makes it to Set's tower and begins fighting him. However, Set is able to eventually knock Horus to the ground. As Set prepares to stab Horus with a spear, Beck shows up and uses a rope to stop the attack. Set transforms into his true form and charges at Beck. While being held by Set, Beck is able to steal the Eye of Horus and throw it towards his friend, but he falls off the top of the tower in the process. Horus chooses to save his friend rather than his eye, and as the two plummet to their deaths, Horus is able to transform and fly them to safety. Beck is confused that Horus was able to transform and fly without his eye, and Horus realizes that he wasn't weak because he was missing his eye, rather because his heart was never in the right place. Horus transforms again and begins fighting with Set, dueling with him in his tower and causing lots of damage to the building. Horus is eventually able to grab Set and rip his wings off before sending him hurtling towards the ground as his building collapses on top of him. Horus finds Set badly wounded in the rubble of the building and kills him with the Spear of Ra before flying off to find his grandfather.
I thought you were the greatest of all the gods.
He revives Ra by giving him his spear, and Ra immediately begins fighting Apophis and forcing it away from the earth. Horus returns to the earth and finds that one of his followers has found his other eye. Horus takes his eye back and is finally restored to his true power. He then goes to Bek, only to find that Bek has died from his wounds during the fight with Set. Horus brings Bek's body to lie next to Zaya's. However, Ra suddenly appears and brings both of them back to life, as a thank you for Horus saving the world. Bek and Zaya wake up and kiss each other, happy to be together again. The film flashes forward and we see Horus being crowned king. He addresses his people and tells them that instead of being judged in the afterlife based on treasures, they'll be judged based on the good deeds they've done. It's revealed that Bek is now Horus's chief counselor, and we see him give Horus the bracelet that Hather gave him. The film ends as Horus rushes off with the bracelet so he can save Hather and finally be reunited with his love.
Click one of the videos on screen right now.